This morning, I would like to talk about gender and why it is still the missing link in agriculture. But more importantly, I'm also going to talk about what we can do about it. The main message from my talk is that projects and other efforts seeking to empower women must also work with men and must work with the communities in which women are situated. So while gender mainstreaming has become a very standard discourse in a lot of projects, in a lot of programs around agriculture research and planning, in NGO development programming, in policy making, if you look at the last couple of years, what has happened is we have moved from working with gender-blind approaches and started focusing exclusively on women and forgotten that these women are situated in societies, that these women live with men in their households, that these women have to get power from those that are holding power within these communities. To illustrate this, I would like to tell you a story about Marcy. Marcy is a small-scale farmer in Malawi. If you look at the picture, I have a circle around Marcy's head. Now, Marcy often grew beans. Beans is a very important crop in Malawi. And usually she intercropped it with maize. Occasionally, she would put it in her husband's tobacco plot. Now, on a good year, she could harvest about 50 kilograms, 60 kilograms of beans. Now, out of this, she would use about 20 kilograms to feed her family, providing very much needed relish and protein. Another 30 or so kilograms she would stand by the roadside and sell to passers-by. Using the money that she got from beans, she could buy some cooking oil, some children's clothes, occasionally some meat. She was in control of the bean crop. She planted it, she weeded for it, she sold it, she decided what to do with the money from it. As you know, in most of Africa, same case in Malawi, a lot of these legume crops are in the hands of women. But then, some researchers, NGOs, started working in Marcy's village. And when they said they were going to work on beans, Marcy was overjoyed. Finally, she was going to get a good market for her beans. Finally, she could get improved varieties that would probably increase her yields. With a new intervention, Marcy got some improved seed, but this seed had to be planted in rows, which means she had to negotiate with her husband for a plot of land in which to plant these beans. She could no longer put them as an intercrop with beans, with maize. She could no longer put it in her husband's tobacco plot. So after some discussions with her husband, he allocated her a piece of the farm to plant her new varieties. Production went up, productivity went up, prices were good. Now, the new market for this new variety was in the city. They had to bulk the beans, take them to Lilongwe City, for those of you who know Malawi, from where it would be bulked and exported to South Africa. Unfortunately, at this same time, tobacco wasn't doing very well. And therefore, the husband joined Marcy to work on her bean plot. And he took charge of taking the bean to the collection center in the city. Often, when he went to take the beans, he wouldn't be back for 3 days. And guess what? He came back without the money. What happened? Marcy could not believe it. She had control of the bean crop. Productivity had gone up. Prices were higher. But she didn't have the money in her pocket. She could no longer make the decision how much of the bin to feed her children, how much of the bin would go to the market. It is a phrase I often heard over and over again, where there were market development projects focusing on women. When the prices went up, market became more efficient, markets went further, we lost control of the crop. We could no longer make any decisions pertaining the crop. So what did Marcy do? She went back to her neighbors, got some of the old varieties, started intercropping it again in the maize and the tobacco plot so that she could at least go back to the roadside and get some money from the bins. That's development projects, exclusively focusing on women and forgetting that these women, there are other forces around them. So let me tell you about Malawi. I went to Malawi in 2004. I was young, I was energetic, I was idealistic. I was going to change the face of women in African agriculture. Now, you see these maps a lot. Very high poverty levels. In some countries, poverty is a statistic that you see in a map. In Malawi, poverty stared at you every day. Poverty dared you every day. When you turned, you saw it. Where you lived, you saw it. You went to the field, you met with it. You looked at the houses, you saw it. You looked at the children, you saw poverty. You didn't need to look at the map. Because of the unimodal rainfall pattern in Malawi, it was a very long hunger season from between one harvest and the next crop. And in 2004, I arrived during this hunger period. Families were struggling to put one meal a day together. I went to the field, I cried, I went back to my office, and I said, I am not working here. I cannot work here. The Malawi of 2004 is not the Malawi we hear of today. Right now we hear stories of bumper harvests. It was very different back then. It was one of the countries where I worked, and women would not come to a meeting because their clothes were too tattered for them to be seen in public. That's how bad it was. Very high levels of child undernutrition. I had stopped being shocked by children's distended stomachs. They would still be wearing very happy faces, but you could tell there was really high levels of malnutrition. So there was a team of us, young African scientists. And as I said, in our minds, we were going to change the face of women in agriculture. But we had decided that men were going to be part of the solution. We called the program Enabling Rural Innovation. And we enthusiastic. By the time we were done, the women, the men, they would know we had been there. Yeah? So we had a few other countries too. We worked in Tanzania, in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique, in Uganda. And we aimed to achieve two objectives with this program. First, we were going to improve food security, but we were also going to achieve economic empowerment of women through sustainable and profitable agriculture. Basically, we were going to put food on the table. We were going to put money in the pockets of women, but for that money to stay there, we also needed to put money in the pockets of the men as well. Because we knew from previous evidence, if you worked with women only, if you focused on one commodity only, it wasn't going to solve the problem of women. So what did we do? We sat with women. We sat with men. We sat with whole villages. We started a visioning process. What were their dreams? What is it that they wanted to achieve? We didn't start with problems. We knew there were too many. We knew the moment we solved one, there would be another. So we focused on the opportunities. We focused on how they could use the resources that they had to get to their dreams. So women had their maps, very well-drawn maps of what they wanted out of their lives. Men had maps. We had whole village maps of how they wanted to transform their villages. We identified multiple commodities. We prioritized them. What did women prefer as a source of income for themselves? What did men prefer as a source of income for themselves? In every community, we worked on more than one. One chosen by the women, one chosen by the men, and often a third one that was chosen by both of them. There were often crop livestock combinations. Women would mainly take crops or small livestock. We used other criteria as well. This was not, let's do this, let's be all happy together. They had to be profitable. There had to be a market for them. So in one community, we worked on beans and pigs. In another, we worked on groundnuts, soybeans, and goats. And in yet another, we worked on dairy cattle and beans. We worked together to develop these enterprises. But for these enterprises to work, we knew we had to build capacity, especially of women, to understand and to engage with markets. They couldn't be passive participants in markets. Skills on negotiation, how to price their commodities, how to calculate their production costs so that they were not making losses. The market requirements for different commodities. We took them out, loads of women, to the supermarkets, to talk to the processors, to talk to the wholesalers in the market. For a lot of them, this is the first time that they had gone to the market, not to buy, but just to understand how markets work. Now, we integrated research into these market commodities, including new varieties, new management practices. And the idea was that these enterprises had to be competitive. They had to meet the quality requirements of the market. We built capacity in group organization skills because it required a certain level of working in groups. And through groups, then women could save, they could have better access to services such as extension. They could buy seeds together at cheaper prices. In order to sustain these benefits, we integrated leadership and assertiveness training for women, because from here they needed to move and take on more roles within their households and within the communities. More important, we had gender training for households, for whole villages, for them to recognize the benefits of working together, the benefits of achieving gender equality, that it wasn't just an issue of elevating women, that it was beneficial for the whole household, and it was beneficial for whole communities. We saw a lot of impacts. This was my favorite village, because when we first went there was one black pig that used to roam around the village. In 2 years' time, each and every household in that village had a minimum of 4 pigs. Every hunger season, households were selling pigs to buy food to cover the hunger season. The private sector had come in. They were providing services. They were buying pigs. This village became a resource for the whole country. The permanent secretary for agriculture went to see this village and said, "You're going to train other farmers in this country." There was beans everywhere. I had never seen so many beans, so many different types of beans in my whole life, in the local market, for the export market. So the development of women-managed and men-managed enterprises gave women more control of some of these crops. Women managed 60 to 70% of the income from beans, from groundnuts, from soya beans. And men were not threatened. They managed about 85% of the income from pigs. There was enterprises for everybody. There was money for everybody. So there was investment in new houses and in assets, improved nutrition of children, and a shortening of the hunger period because now people had money to buy food. I would like to tell you about one family in particular, because when we started, the woman did not come to the meetings because she did not have clothes to wear. Now, both her and her husband, however, had joined the farmer association in their village and had got the seeds and a goat. And in one of the monitoring visits, she came to the meeting, crisp white blouse, wearing shoes, her husband, brand new shiny black shoes. It was the first time they had worn shoes in their lives, and you could see the pride in their faces. They named their son Nyemba, which is the Chichewa for beans. I usually say I hope he still likes that name today. They had sold 6 bags of beans and a goat. And for us, beyond the fact that they were wearing new clothes, they were seeing unlimited opportunities ahead of them. Beans had saved their son through the hunger period. And this impact spread. In Tanzania, we worked with an NGO that trained government staff that worked in 36 districts in Tanzania, reaching hundreds of thousands of women farmers. Now, looking back at the program, it reminded me of this saying by Lukoc, that no one woman, which is the woman is my emphasis, can play the symphony. It takes a whole orchestra. And you know what in an orchestra? It's the pianists, it's the people playing the violin, it's the drummers, it's everybody. It takes the men, it takes whole communities to empower women. I'm now back living in Kenya, working with livestock scientists to integrate these kinds of approaches in their work. But more important, mentoring other young scientists with a passion for gender and development so that we can keep the gender match alive.